get it. This hasn't been the most exciting summer, and it definitely wasn't the most exciting season. But wow, everybody's really, really down. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. So we have a headquarters downtown that also has a retail component. And as such, it happens several times a day that someone will just pop in, maybe working nearby, maybe living here, and they'll walk in just to say hi or to say that they like the show, or who knows, maybe they really didn't like the show, but they'll have something to say almost always about sports. Now, this time of year, that's going to be a lot about baseball, some about football, and almost nothing about hockey. So over the weekend, one elderly woman walks in, and you can tell she's got something to say. Just walks right up to where I'm sitting in the back, chugging on my coffee and typing something. And she says, I gotta tell you, without even like saying hello, right? I gotta tell you, I don't think the Penguins are going to be any good. Okay, so I bite, Why don't you think that? Well, I'll tell you why I think that. And I'm still waiting. And she says, because they're getting old. I'm thinking, really? That's what you have? That's your insight? This is the thing you really needed to get out of your system? The Penguins aren't going to be any good because they're getting old. Here's the deal, though. I can have some fun at her expense. I can have some fun at the concept in general. But that's what I hear from everybody. Like, it can be a little more layered than that, but that's the sentiment that I get in general from even the most ardent, passionate followers of this franchise. It's just wah, wah. And, I obviously get that since I've been critical of the way the team had been constructed under Kyle Dubas. I didn't like his moves from last summer. I initially didn't like at all the Jake Gensel trade. Open and happy to be wrong about that, if it turns out that way. But this summer, this summer was never going to be go get 2 or 3 mega superstar guys. This summer was never going to have an Erik Karlsson trade that was going to floor everybody, not only from the imagination standpoint, like, wow, can you picture how awesome this power play is going to be now that Karlsson's here, but also from the perspective that was very, very real at the time that, wow, we got ourselves a really whiz-kid GM here, because that trade had a ton of moving parts, and no matter what you thought of the way Karlsson fit here, as the season went on, you had to tap the sticks for the way that trade was consummated. To word that another way, he got somebody to take Mikael Granlund's contract off your hands. And he did bring back a first ballot Hall of Famer. But that wasn't going to be this. Whether or not the Gensel trade was, and I believe that it was to an extent, a flare shot up into the sky to let everybody know, hey, this was it, okay? I gave you your chance. I gave you 5 months. You didn't do anything. It's time we start, looking at finding a way to make this roster younger and faster and more enthusiastic and all that other stuff. I believe that was at least part of his motivation, though I strongly suspect he'd never acknowledge that. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. From there, he got into some other subtraction that I don't feel, this is just me, I don't feel has been appreciated or applauded nearly enough. Jeff Carter is no longer going to take the ice for this team. With all due respect to his veteranosity and everything else that everybody was getting all sentimental about on Long Island, I don't care, okay? I do care that the team is going to be better without him than they were with him. Riley Smith is no longer here. That is a W.5. I couldn't care less what Smith had to say in his defense about whether or not he wants to be in Pittsburgh or this or that, because they're going to find out the same thing in New York that we just saw here, and that is that he wants to be in Las Vegas for all eternity. He hated leaving the Golden Knights fresh off a championship. He did nothing to hide that, and more important, he did almost nothing on the ice to merit the kind of paycheck that he was getting. Great. See ya. Those two are going to be replaced in some form or fashion by someone who is younger and who comes with a lot more energy. And I'm not going to necessarily attach names to that because maybe it's Kevin Hayes. Oh, he's not a lot younger. He's definitely younger, replacing Carter. And then you've got your Blake Lizottes and your Anthony Beauvilliers. Maybe it's Sam Poulin or Valtteri Puustinen. Whoever it is that takes Smith's place, that's going to be a plus. What Dubas did this summer, I think, is what everyone thinks that he hasn't done. And that's to make this team younger, to instill more energy, to instill more actual competition. Is the top 6 good enough? I mean, I could make an argument that it is. Is the top 4 on defense good enough? I mean, I'd like to see Ryan Graves not be a disaster. If that's the case, I'm okay with the top 4. Goaltending, another subject for another day, but the tandem of Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic actually stacked up okay in the NHL last season. So what's been missing here, and what was missing last season, in addition to the power play, I'm not intending to leave that out, is the supporting cast. The supporting cast was just a skating collective cadaver, and I don't think it's going to be that this season. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Adam, who says, not that it would have happened, DK, but it could have. Imagine a world where the Penguins still had Brandon Tanev, Jason Zucker, Ricard Raquel, Blake Lizotte, and now possibly still Michael Bunting, although I don't think that trade would happen with these other guys on the board. Do you think that the Penguins would have had so many malaise-filled games or laissez-faire periods? Filling out the rest of your team with guys who bring it not only keeps the entire team chugging along, but it drags the stars with them as well. You know, Adam, this is kind of the point that I was trying to make in the opening segment. You might have made it better. I'm not going to get into, if you keep this guy, then that guy, because there's always a billiards type effect with every move that you make. I mentioned Tanev being lost in the expansion draft, the Seattle expansion draft, late last week on an episode, and I had a bunch of people say, well, I also lost Jared McCann, as if I'd somehow forgotten that. You were going to lose somebody, and you didn't need to lose either of them, but I digress. If somehow you were able to keep these guys and you were able to have more of a consistent, I'll use the term again, energy to the overall lineup, I think there is a different feel to the Penguins. I go back to, I'm trying to think what the exact time element on this was. I want to say 3 years ago, where Mike Sullivan had been really successful in instilling this mindset through the entire lineup that there was a certain way that they needed to play against certain opponents. So when the Penguins would go into some other good teams building, they would be sold on the idea that if they didn't do this, 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 and this, they were actually going to get skated right out of there. And it worked, but it worked in large part because one or two of the stars would be hurt, which would exacerbate anything that would happen to you that get exposed. And B, he had people. He had those types of fire plugs that he could send out there. So not to belabor the point here, but how do you take that and then go out and get Nola Chari and Matt Nieto and whatever, you know? How do you have any awareness of that and this coach's system and this coach's emphasis on being first on the forecheck and flying around and being in everyone's face and multiple sticks on every puck and all this other stuff, and you go out and get those guys, a bunch of 30-year-olds. So that's what I want to see. I want to see a training camp. I want to see it from day one in September, where you've got guys all over each other. I don't even care if they're stirring up stuff. I don't care if they're getting into fights. I want to see a feisty as hell camp, because that's going to be the thing that defines this team, or it's going to be exactly what that old lady said. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.